It's been, gosh, I guess it's been over a year and a half now. As we were wrapping up Black Ops 1, the team was really firing on all cylinders, and while we gave everything we had to that and we were really happy with it, we kind of felt like as a team, that was the first time that the entire studio had just focused on one game, and so we felt like we were really proud of what we created, but we felt like that was kind of like the base level. Like we felt like we could push it so much more, and so that's why you're seeing so many new things go into Black Ops 2. Is like we felt like we had created something as a great foundation. We felt like we had just scratched the surface with the fiction. We loved the storytelling and sort of like these are the this is the history you didn't know about, and these are the black operations. We liked the tone of it. Sort of the dark things and dark places and everything that's going on in that world. The multiplayer team was excited about what we created. The zombies team was excited about what we created. So pretty much, the fiction itself, to take it to the near future. Well, we can trace that back to while we're in submission with Black Ops 1. The game's basically done. It's submitted to first parties, which as it's getting manufactured before it hits the shelves, in the past, sometimes we'd been like, need a little bit of a break, but like we were just super excited about what we created. So we started spinning on, hey, with this one we can do this, take it to the near future but we want it to be a sequel with the characters, so we can do this generation spanning, and just like all these different ideas started coming to the surface. And so, like I said, while probably the worst kept secret in gaming is that Treyarch is making Call of Duty Black Ops 2, exactly what Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is probably the best kept secret in gaming. We try to look at the future in the same way we look at the past. The past needs to be authentic and plausible enough to be able to set you into our fiction. And we look at that when we're doing our future. So we did a bunch of research. We met with experts like Peter Singer to talk to us about advanced robotics and drone warfare, since that's going to play a significant role in the next decade of warfare. But I think you also, you asked a specific question about weaponry. So on one level, I think you can expect, if you look at the past, which is where we oftentimes will look for how things have evolved in the past, that there's weaponry that's been around for a long time. So you might have that also. There may be some weaponry that could be around for a long time. But for gameplay and also because it will exist and there'll be all this new technological advancements, there's going to be a ton of new weaponry. So we literally have to come up with, and it was very difficult, but we got through a lot of iteration, we literally come up with a justification and a storyline for every piece of technology and weaponry that we come up with. So let me give you a more in-depth example. So in the demonstration of LA, we showed you a sniper weapon, but it was not a sniper weapon like anything you've ever played with in Call of Duty. And in fact, if you just stopped right there and you looked at it, you might say, well, there's this weapon that shoots through walls, that you can see through walls and shoot people through, right? Is that realistic? Is that not realistic? Well, I'll tell you how we think about it, and how we have to justify it to ourselves before it makes it in the game. Is we go, okay, in the future, what would a sniper rifle be, and what would be a really amazing optic for that sniper rifle? Well, you flew here from Australia, and you probably had to go through those TSA scanners, right, where you put your hands up here and they can see through everything. Well, there's that millimeter wave technology. It exists in large form factor right now. And you know that every 18 to 24 months, there's this thing called Moore's Law, where processing power is going to double, right? It's going to double. That is very hard to conceptualize. In fact, you almost have to look to the past to even get an idea of what that actually means. If you go 13, because it's hard to look out that way and go, so what does that actually look like? Well, look 13 years back. The PS3 or the 360 that you can go buy is the same processing power as a multi-million-dollar, the most advanced piece of hardware that the military would have running, the military. So servers, whole huge computer systems, multi-million dollars. 13 years ago is the same processing power as a PS3 or a 360, which, by the way, we also know as technology that's been around for a while, right? Okay, so you project that out, go back to the millimeter wave technology. processing power continues. We also know that as time advances, form factors get smaller. We know that from our own personal consumer electronics devices. They all smaller, things get more efficient. Okay, now you have an optic. That would be a pretty impressive optic to have, as opposed to it being on a vehicle, mounted on a vehicle, moving through a city. It's actually on a weapon. Okay, now what do? You can see through it. Now you want to be able, from a gameplay point of view, you got to be able to do something about that. How do you justify that? Hey, that's a pillar. That thing is 4 feet worth of concrete or whatever it is. Well, I don't know if you've seen something called, and this is not necessarily a technology we're using, but it exists today. There's something called metal storm technology that we saw that inspired us. I don't know if you've seen this. It's an electronic charge as opposed to a gunpowder charge. It fires 1 million rounds every 60 seconds. That's today. Now, it's in big form factor. Again, we're talking 13 years out. So now, from a gameplay point of view, because you have to balance that, because that's a pretty powerful weapon suddenly. It's like you're putting this technology on a sniper weapon. Well, how do you balance that? Well, it's a charge shot mechanic. You have to hold down. The longer you charge up, right, the more you can penetrate. If you don't charge up enough, you might not be able to penetrate the surface material. So that's how we sort of, that's a combination of fiction with game balance and sort of everything else. But that weapon has gone through a lot of iteration, and it's not just gameplay, it's artistically. Does that, how does that, sit in the world? The drones are the same thing. I mean, you saw the quadped, the claw, the cognitive land assault weapon. That's the 4-legged tank-like thing with the huge mounted caliber thing. It's like that went through a lot of revision as well for the team to get that right, to make it feel like, yeah, this feels plausible. Does that exist right now? No. Does the other weapon exist right now? No. But every single one of those things has a backstory. It's like, we know that there are quadpeds that are basically, mules. They, robotic mules. They can carry large amounts of gear and things like that. Well, how long before that sort of thing could potentially have a camera or a weapon mounted to it or something like that? So we go through that whole process for everything. Good question. So Strike Force levels are part of the campaign, and they'll be introduced to the player at points as the story is unfolding and the Cold War is playing out and there are these proxy wars. JSOC's going to come before you as a player and say, there are these hotspots in the world. You need to send a Black Ops team in. You'll have a choice then as a player which one of these hotspots you want to take on, and then you'll be inserted into it. So at the highest level, we've just introduced nonlinearity into the campaign, choice and nonlinearity into the campaign structure, before you've even actually started playing them out. Now, when you get dropped into that level, the goal was to have a nonlinear sandbox gameplay experience that would be fun to replay, but also accessible. That's a lot of goals. That's a lot of goals that the team worked really hard on and took us a long time to get. So you'll be able to play as any of the members of your squad who have different weaponry. You'll be able to take over any of the equipment on the battlefield. So the vehicles, the flying vehicles, you want to fly that quad, you can do that. You want to take over that cognitive land assault weapon with the heavy machinery, you can do that. You want to take over the automated sentry drone and roll through there with all kinds of rockets and heavy caliber equipment, you can do that. You want to play the general on the battlefield and get the overview and set it up before you move into the encounter, you can do that. You want to just play it like you played every single Call of Duty level. Again, it has to be accessible, but have depth. You can do that. You can just go in with your weapon in hand and never move to any of those things. But for the player who wants an entirely new experience in Call of Duty, you're absolutely going to get that with Strike Force levels. So the cool thing about about our fiction that I think works really well just from a gameplay point of view. So let's pull the fiction and help serve the gameplay in this point. That what happens is, in our fiction, is our villain, Raul Menendez, steals the keys to the U.S. military infrastructure and turns our advantage, which is this advancement in robotics and drones, on us. It turns our own weapons on us. So what that means is, while you're playing with them as allies, right? At some point in the fiction, you'll have to fight. You're going to be fighting against them. So that's all. What that means is now you got entirely new AI that you've never fought against in a Call of Duty game. You know, flying AI or quad AI or the cognitive land assault weapon. And what that means is there's, you know, these aren't humanoids, which means they might require different strategies to take them out. So in this way, the fiction and our desire to create a compelling fiction but also introduce new kinds of gameplay sort of serves each other really nicely. I'm happy to talk about the PC. We have a PC team that's dedicated to the PC version of the game. We even message out and communicate through our Twitter channels to the PC community. You know, there will be, you know, we are optimizing our engine for DX11. It is a more efficient system. We're working on proprietary anti-cheat mechanisms specifically for the PC. We strongly believe in trying to maintain the integrity of that, and we're working very hard to try and maintain the integrity of that so that everyone can enjoy it, of the multiplayer game. You know, we're doing all kinds of advancements on the graphics engine that is going to, you know, I think yield great results if you've invested in your rig. I think the other thing, the flip side of that is, if you have a rig that's been around for a couple of years, that's fine too, because we're actually trying to make it play great on a wide variety of systems. I think that, you know, we haven't settled on the minimum system spec. It will go up probably from where we are with Black Ops, and we haven't settled that, but still, the variety of systems that this is going to play on is really going to be great. You know, we certainly saw a lot of different configurations coming out of Black Ops, and we have all that data and all that information. We can build upon that and learn about that, and you know, I think if you play all these new modes, I think the inputs are going to be great. It's like you want to play at the tactical level on a Strike Force level with the mouse and keyboard. I think, you know, it's pretty obvious that a strategic gameplay element inside the game is going to play really well on the PC. Clearly, it's going to play really great at higher resolutions. Let's see, what else can I tell you about PC? We haven't discussed that. It's very, you know, we do have support for the PC mod community with our really extensive support with World at War. There's some other support, of course, with Black Ops. You know, as this engine and the tools evolve and change, they're not always set up for mass market systems.